Hello and welcome to another Under the Queer Umbrellas video. First of all, I want to thank you all for waiting so patiently for the next entry in the series. It has been almost a year now, and you've all been so patient and giving my last 4 entries in this series so much love, and I can do nothing but thank you for that. This is going to be the 5th entry in our Under the Queer Umbrella series. Let's get right into it. Welcome to the 5th entry in our Under the Queer Umbrella series. In this entry, we shall be discussing asensual spectrum identities. We will explain what asensuality means and break down some identities that fall under this category, also known as Asen-Spec. I'll also mention how I fit under this category of identities too. Before we start, let's do a quick disclaimer. Although I've gone into this entry with the best intentions to educate others and done plenty of my own research into these identities by talking to those who identify with these labels and doing online research, I do not have the majority of these identities and therefore cannot speak from personal experience. If I get any information wrong, if you're comfortable, feel free to let me know in the comments and I will amend the blog entry version of this video as needed. My intention is to bring awareness to these identities and to educate on the beauty of queer identities. I encourage you to do your own research alongside this entry. So what is asensuality? The asensual spectrum, or Asen-Spec, is a group of identities which are unified by those who either completely lack sensual attraction or feel as if their experience of sensual attraction can be related more to the asensual experience than the allocentric experience. There is no one way or correct way to be asensual, and the experiences of those who are asensual can differ greatly. As always, it is important to respect the terms others use, even if you personally do not fully understand them. This entry will hopefully help those who are not asensual understand these terms more and possibly give those who are questioning more clarity on their own identity. This is not a comprehensive list by any means, and we will be discussing more Asen-Spec identities in the future. So if your identity doesn't show up on this list, it's not forgotten, it will likely be mentioned at another point in the future. Asensuality is a group of identities which are just as valid as more well-known Asen-Spec identities such as asexuality and aromanticism identities, which we've discussed in previous entries. My hope is to give asensuality the love, time and respect it deserves. It's about time asensuality gets some attention. With that said, let's get into this entry. Before we discuss some identities that fall under the Asen-Spec, let's first briefly discuss what allocentral means to help see the differences between these identities. Allocentral. Allocentral is an umbrella term created by the Asen-Spec community to refer to those who regularly experience sensual attraction to others. Allocentrality is often considered the societal norm, and this leads to the discrimination of those who do not conform to the allocentric ideals of society. The Asen community do experience oppression because of this, and this needs to be addressed. Allocentrality is not inherently bad, but it does come with a privilege that those who are allo need to accept. Because of the lack of education on asexuality, sensual attraction is often overlooked as being an extension of sexual attraction, but this is not the case. Sensuality refers to any act which isn't necessarily sexual in nature. This includes kissing, cuddling, holding hands, massages, feeding other individuals on dates, and showering with other individuals, amongst other things. These acts are often overlooked as being a standard, and it's important that all of us, especially allocentrals, work together to combat the stigma those whose relationship with sensuality is not allo in nature face. Asen-Spec identities. Asensual. Asensual is one of the least talked about Asen-Spec identities out there, often overshadowed by the asexual and aromantic communities. But do not be mistaken, there is no hierarchy within the Asen-Spec. All these terms are on the same level. Asensuality is an umbrella term for any identity which is not allocentral, but it can be used on its own or paired with other Asen identities. Asensuality refers to the way sensual attraction is experienced, not to how it is acted upon. Those who are Asen can and do participate in sensual activities for the same reasons as allos do. The difference comes from how sensual attraction is experienced. It's often defined as a lack of sensual attraction, and it can also come with a lack of interest in or a lack of desire to participate in sensual activities. But it's important to remember that every Asen is different, and that asensuality is not indicative of an individual's relationship with sex, romance, or relationships. Asensuality is not a choice, and many asensuals do partake in sensual activity. I refer to myself as asensual, as I mentioned, is an umbrella term for all asen identities, and I'm still discovering how exactly I fit into the spectrum. I know I'm asensual, and for now I feel this is a label that fits me the best. Perhaps you yourself are asensual and didn't even know it until seeing this entry, or maybe you are another asen identity we will be discussing in this entry. If so, welcome to the Asen family, my beautiful siblings. Asen flux. Asen flux refers to those whose sensual orientation fluctuates but mostly remains on the asensual spectrum. Those who are asen flux can feel strongly asensual one day and feel demi-grey or even allocentric on others. All those who are asen flux experience being asen flux differently. Some may only fluctuate between a couple of identities, and some may fluctuate between all of them. There is no right way to be asen flux. Grey sensual. Grey sensual, also spelled as grey sensual with an A, refers to those who relate to asensuality but feel that parts of their experience don't fully fall under the term asensual. Like all identities, it can be used on its own or as an umbrella term that encompasses any identity that isn't purely asensual. Demisensual. Demisensual refers to those who don't experience sensual attraction until they have formed a deep emotional connection to another. The connection can be anything from platonic to romantic. This connection is different for all demisensuals. Like all identities on this list, demisensual is not a choice, and those who are demi don't choose to be sensually attracted to others until they formed a connection. Demisensuals can use the term demi by itself or pair it with asensual. All Asen-Spec identities can be paired with other identities. You can be demi and bi, or demi and straight. Those who are straight and are part of the A-Spec especially get a lot of hate for pretending to be queer. This is not the case, and it's important that we remember to be inclusive to all queer identities, especially those who are constantly targeted by bigots. Egocentral. Egocentral describes those who have a disconnection between themselves and their subject of sensual fantasies. They may view sensual content like kissing or ASMR, but they have little to no sensual attraction or desire to partake in sensual activity such as kissing or caressing with the subject or subjects of their sensual fantasy. Apophysensual. Apophysensual is another term for those who are touch repulsed, can be used to refer to themselves. This refers to those who are adverse to partaking in sensual activity that involves touch, but are fine with those who do partake in touch-related sensual activity that doesn't involve them. The following is an exclusive identity, cade sensual. This term refers to those who feel that at one point they identified as allocentric, but this was taken or cut away from them due to trauma. This identity can only be used by trauma survivors, but I wanted to include it here to show how diverse and inclusive the A-Spec community is. Many A-Spec identities can be found through trauma. This doesn't mean they are any less valid than non-trauma related identities. Identity is a fluid thing, and for some it can change or adapt to their personal situations over time. Trauma-related identities deserve just as much attention and respect as any other identity on this list. They don't make you any less asensual. Cupiocentral. Cupiocentral is a term that refers to those that feel no sensual attraction, but still desire/like the idea of having a sensual relationship. Those who are cupiocentral are often touch favourable, but you can still be cupiocentral even if you're not. There are no conditions to any label, only basic themes that others with that label may also share. The following is an exclusive identity, dependsensual. Dependsensual is a term used by those who have dependent personality disorder, or DPD, and only experience attraction towards their dependent or dependents in a non-sexual context. The term can also be used to refer to any form of attraction within the context of DPD. Of course, this is a term that can only be used by DPD individuals. I wanted to include it here because it's important to celebrate the diversity within the queer community, and neurodiverse and disabled queer individuals deserve to have their terms celebrated just as much as everybody else. Omniasensual. Those who are omniasensual, or panasensual, as it's also known, are purely asensual and have no sensual attraction whatsoever. They also have no interest in engaging in any sensual activity or even the idea of talking about sensual related subjects. This does not mean they don't support those who do. This is their own experience and doesn't reflect on any others. So that's it for asensual attraction identities. As you can see, there aren't nearly as many as other identity groups we've discussed before. Hopefully more will come in the future as more and more individuals learn about asensuality. Before we end this entry, I want to take a moment to quickly run through some other identities which fall under sensual attraction. These identities are just as queer as any other identity on this list, deserve love, and can be paired with any identity on this list, or indeed any form of attraction. Bisensual. Bisensual is a term used by those who experience sensual attraction towards two or more genders. Heterosensual. Heterosensual is a term used by those who experience sensual attraction towards non-binary individuals. This attraction can encompass all non-binary identities, a select few, or even just one specific non-binary identity. Heterosensual. Heterosensual is a term used by those who experience sensual attraction to those of dissimilar genders to their own. Homosensual. Homosensual is a term used by those who experience sensual attraction to those of similar genders to their own. Lesbisensual. Finally, for this entry, we have lesbisensual. This is a term used by individuals who experience sensual attraction through a lesbian experience. So there we go. Asensual spectrum identities and some bonus sensual attraction identities. I'm glad I was able to highlight some of these identities in a format akin to the last 4 entries in this series. Unfortunately, this will not be possible for all future entries in the series going forward, but we will be trying to stick to it where and when we are able. In our next entry, we will be discussing the Platonic spectrum, better known as Asen-Spec, and going forward, we will be doing more broader topics such as queerness in relation to neurodiversity and representation of queer individuals in media, such as Heartstopper, because I'm obsessed. As always, please do your own research alongside these entries, and I hope to see you next time. For now, I wish you Borada, Prunhanda, Noswifda, or Nosda wherever you are in the world. Bye!